Good evening, members. Good evening, officers. Welcome. And good evening, members of the public that have joined us on YouTube. And welcome to the two faces in the Rogues Gallery that are in front of me. Planning Applications Committee, 9th of December. We have no outliers, so there'll be no fire. And apologies, we have apologies from...
Thank you, Chairman. Councillors Mansfield, Morley, Whitcroft and Wheeler, and Councillor Morgan Rise is subbing for Councillor Whitcroft today.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Morgan. Is it agreeable that I sign the minutes of the last meeting? Thank you. Thank you. Declarations we will deal with at each item, which takes us through to item number 1 on page 7, Princess Royal Barracks at Deepcut. On declarations, I've received representations on behalf of Skanska. I assume that that came to everybody else. Fine. Are there any other declarations to make on this item? No. Mrs. Bishop, please.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I would like to advise members that we will have Andy Stokes from Surrey County Highways with us this evening. He is the team leader who deals with all highways matters related to the Princess Royal Barracks in Deepcut. The application that we are looking at tonight is a variation to the Section 106 legal agreement that is associated with the hybrid planning permission, which was granted in April 2014 for a residential-led redevelopment for up to 1,200 dwellings. This permission was subject to the Section 106, which secured community, highway and social infrastructure. As members may recall from the affordable housing application a couple of months ago, all the reserve matters applications on Deepcut have to be submitted by April 2024. The applicant has submitted this proposal to address the following matters. To resolve conflicts between the planning permission, the approved plans and the Section 106 agreement. To add, amend or delete definitions. To amend the triggers for the delivery of works or the payment of contributions. To amend or delete plans and to amend or delete provisions. It's proposed to represent the final suite of changes to the agreement, to facilitate the delivery of the remainder of the hybrid permission before it expires in April 2024. The amendments also propose updates to the agreement to reflect the reserve matters approvals granted on the site to date. These are essential changes to provide consistency between the approvals and the Section 106 agreement. The proposed amendments would also support the site being eligible for the Help to Buy scheme. Now, this is a scheme run by the government for first-time buyers. It's open to adults over the age of 18 who have never bought a house before, and it provides a reduced deposit of 5%, and the government will support up to an equity loan of up to 20%. It will also support the successful marketing of the site in accordance with the recently agreed affordable housing strategy, and also help for ongoing viability. Now, we've also had another issue. As members may recall from the affordable housing application, DIO went out to the market last month with a view to marketing the residential parcels. One of the major feedback things that they have had is the occupation triggers in the legal agreement. So the proposed amendments also seek to address issues where compliance is linked to occupation triggers, which is, as I said, this has been an issue raised by both developers and residents seeking to secure help to buy funding. It would also support the land sales by giving certainty to developers. The issue that has come up is that it is likely that how the sales of the parcels are going, we will have developers coming in and building at the same time. And what they don't want to happen is that they have a very close occupation trigger. So they're building and occupying on one site, but site B down the road has just started with 2, and that's then taken over the occupation trigger. So that's what they want to try and address, so that they have enough, for want of a non-technical term, enough wriggle room to make sure that the occupation triggers doesn't prevent occupation. Now, the main changes are the replacement of the traffic light controlled junctions with a roundabout scheme in Frimley Green. Members may recall that last year this was subject for a great deal of public consultation. You can see on the left here, this is the scheme that is in the legal agreement. You have traffic light control at the junction with Wharf Road and Guildford Road with the Frimley Green Road. This has been replaced by the scheme that is on the right. It is a variation on the existing roundabout scheme that we have, that you see today. It will necessitate taking a little bit of common land, but it is a scheme that I think everybody is keen to support. We're also updating Plan A, which is in the legal agreement. As you can see from the plan on the left, we can see that the pub site has changed here, the school site has changed. So you can see that this reflects the reserve matters approvals for the school. This reflects reserve matters for the pub. So we just want to make sure that where the council has given reserve matters approval, the plans that we have do tie up. We also have an inclusion of an option to take a financial contribution for the Junction 3 M3 works. As you will see from the report, as originally drafted, the only option for this clause was to provide a financial contribution. We had some concerns over that. So we now have the clauses have been rewritten so that they have to come and ask us and the County Council, and we have to agree whether or not we want the contribution or we want the works to be done. Again, it is important that the works are done to mitigate the development. And we are very, very aware of that, and the applicant and the County Highway Authority are aware that that is our view. We also have the introduction of the ability of the management entity to maintain and manage the non-residential land in the event it's not going to be transferred to the council, with new clauses inserted to ensure that all land is completed to the council standard, even if it is going to be dealt with or maintained and managed by a management entity. And we're also looking for the introduction of a reporting mechanism for commencement and occupation, because we have no formal system to actually find out when they commence and when they occupy. And given that so much of the agreement is dependent on that information, we wanted to formalise that so that it was clear when we would be getting that information. So in conclusion, the delivery of the Deep Cut vision is to provide a high quality residential-led development which will also deliver valuable new community services, which is important to the village of Deep Cut. The associated infrastructure mitigation will ensure that the development is accommodated without significant impact on the environment or existing Deep Cut residents. And we recognise that delays in delivery are disappointing, but there is no reduction in the measures or contributions which were secured in the original agreement. And as far as possible, we have always, where works are required to mitigate, we have basically tried to keep to the original occupation triggers. Now, there is an update on the update form. We have had a further representation from the Richard Frimley Green and Deep Cut Society to do with the lights in the roundabouts in Frimley Green. They have asked, as you can see from the form, information to do with sight lines and also the park, well, it's not a parking space, the sort of the quasi area where people pull in on Frimley Green Road. As you will see, those works will be dealt with as part of the detailed design, and the County Highway Authority have given a detailed response on the update sheet to the queries that have been raised. They agree with the Society that everyone is looking to achieve a high quality scheme within the village. So I think that is a commonality between all parties. One of the comments that was made is about extending the lines on the Frimley Green Road to do with the filling station. We are happy with that. We want to put it on the record so that when it comes to the County Council, they will see that that matter has been considered. We have also had a representation from Windlesham Parish Council in relation to the Junction 3 M3 wording. They've just asked for some clarity, and we're happy to take that on board, and the applicant has amended the wording just to make it clearer and to reflect what the Parish Council are asking for. I would also like to draw members' attention to paragraph 1.4 on page 45. There is a typing mistake. The words say 350, the number says 300. It should be 350. Other than that, the recommendation is to agree the proposed amendments to the Section 106 agreement, as previously varied, to be drafted in detail broadly in accordance with the agenda report, the assessment report, and this update. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Really to summarise, what we're looking at tonight, as you've got on 722, is basically it's a tidying up exercise. It's enabling for that we can go forward with the overall development. And then I'm going to ask you your crystal ball, when we're going to get the 106 agreement signed, and so that matters can progress.
Yes, this is basically an enabling report to remove as many barriers from the delivery of the development as we can, but making sure that we still get all the measures that we originally envisaged in the original agreement. So there's no loss of contributional measures or anything like that. It's just a timing to facilitate more than anything else. The agreement is already being drafted as we speak. So we know that it needs to be done as quickly as we can because people's help to buy purchases are dependent on this agreement being resolved as quickly as possible. And we are very aware of that. So we are progressing this as quickly as we can.
So the important point here is, as I hear that there is no diminution to what we were getting originally. It is a rephasing, for want of another expression.
I think that's accurate.
Thank you. Mr. Stokes, have you got anything you wish to add at this stage? I see you there.
Yes, hi, good evening, members. Nothing to add at this moment, but happy to address any points of clarification.
Thank you. Councillor Dietz, you indicated you wish to speak. I see your hand. Thank you for letting me know you wish to speak, because you were heavily involved with the roundabout at Frimley Green, if I remember rightly, from all the emails I received. Nobody else did. Just for the record, you are at liberty to address the committee, particularly as a ward councillor. And tonight you are not a member of this committee and you do not have a vote on the final decision. So if you'd like to proceed, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. First of all, I would just like to say that I've read through all the pack, as I'm sure every other member has, and also the update from the briefing document from the developer. Really, my purpose this evening for speaking is just to really appeal to the committee that unless you can spot something absolutely glaring, which I haven't been able to spot, that I'd like to see this go through so that there are no unnecessary delays. I've received a number of representations from residents actually across Surrey Heath who are caught in this help to buy loop at the moment, and I've actually had some quite distressing telephone conversations with some residents, some of which are key workers, nurses, teachers, and so on, that they really need these properties and really need this situation speeding up. So that's the main point that I wanted to make this evening. But also I'd like to thank officers, Andrew Stokes, Sarita and planning officers and the developer for progressing the Frimley Green traffic light issue on behalf of residents, and another great example of where, without labouring the point from our meeting the other night, where if you consult residents, where you can get great results. And I just wanted to make that point. So members, if you could, if you are so minded, please make sure this goes through this evening so that we can avoid any other unnecessary delays. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Deitch. Members, Councillor White.
It's just an observation, really. Is it possible that officers at County and at Surrey Heath can keep the relevant borough councillors and county councillors up to date with any agreements made, i.e. whether it's a contribution or works to be done to the M3 junction, so that they're kept in the loop and they know exactly what's going on?
Anything that requires the specific approval of this council will be coming to this committee. So all members will be aware of what the council is recommending to our members as to what we will and won't agree to.
Councillor Rise.
Thank you, Chairman. And I'd also like to pay thanks to officers, especially Mrs. Bishop. She took a phone call for me yesterday where I had a lot of seemingly technical questions, and she was able to alleviate a lot of questions which I would have brought this evening. I do have one question. It's regarding the Schedule 3 affordable housing, and it's just, I believe the officer has already been given a heads up. I'm just a bit confused about what it means in terms of the mortgagee clause and how the 3-month period will work. I was wondering if officers could just clarify it for me. I don't understand it.
Yes, the mortgagee protection clause that's going to be going in is the form of the National Property Federation. It's standard across industry. It allows for, if someone defaults on their mortgage, the lender can step in and sell the property free of affordable housing provisions. That's the purpose. So it's a standard form for industry. Registered providers it's a requirement of lenders to have that form of mortgagee protection clause. So it's driven by lenders. So in order for the registered providers to provide the affordable housing, they need that provision in there to get the funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Blank.
Thank you. Can I just endorse Councillor Deitch's comments, particularly around the Frimley Green traffic lights, and I'd also like to acknowledge the phenomenal amount of work and persistence that the local residents put into, getting the solution that's now on the table to this stage. And it feels like a real milestone tonight if we can get this pushed through. Thank you.
Thank you. No? Well, thank you, members. We have an amended recommendation, with the amendments in the updates. Is there a proposer? Councillor Rise, and I think I'm going. Sorry, Councillor Perry. I will allow you that one. And can we quickly say show of hands if all in agreement to save Mr. Scott? That, I believe, is unanimous. Thank you very much indeed, members. On to item 2 on page 103. As members will know, this has been deferred, and for the record, I will propose the deferral, and Councillor Wheeler, thank you very much, and Councillor Wheeler will second that, and I take it everybody is in agreement with that. Thank you very much. I'm not going for anything else. Thank you, Councillor Tapper. On to item 3, on page 147, Clear Spring, singular, Brick Hill, Chobham. Are there any declarations to make on this item? No. Mrs. Bishop again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for a single-storey rear extension to Clear Spring, which is located in Brick Hill. Brick Hill is located within the Greenbelt, within Chobham. The application site is just here, so you have Fox Hill End in this location. Yeah.
Sorry, can I interrupt? Andy, thanks very much. Sorry we were holding on. Unless you wanted to stay and enjoy the rest of the evening, thank you very much for coming along. It's nice to see you. And hopefully we'd like to see more of you. So please don't be shy. Come and join us.
No, thank you, Chairman, and pleasure to see you again. And yeah, catch up soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.
Sorry, Mr. Bishop. Thank you. Thank you,
Sorry.
Mr. Scott.
The extension is in this location here. It is 8.5 metres wide, 4.5 metres deep, and it will have a ridge of 3 metres. You will see from this plan that they are also looking to convert the loft space into living accommodation with 3 Velux windows. This window in this location is existing. So this is the proposal. So this is the rear extension. In this location, it's built a traditional brick and tile. You can see the 3 Velux windows up there. And this is just another side view. This is looking at the site from the front and the rear from the application site. And this is looking at it again. And this is it in more detail. This is the house next door. So we're talking about works in here. As you'll see. Now this area is the 2-storey extension that is referred to in the report. Oh, no, don't want to do that. Let's go back to previous. As you'll see from the report, in combination with the previous extensions, the proposal is considered to be a disproportionate over the original. However, the harm to openness is considered to be limited, and the report sets out that we have the opportunity to remove permitted development rights, particularly in relation to matters like outbuildings, which are unrestricted at the moment. There is an update to the report set out on the update sheet. The proposed plans, as you can see, included the Velux windows. As originally drafted, the condition would lead to a degree of confusion, so we've tidied up the condition just to say, unless otherwise shown on the approved plan, so that the 3 Velux windows can be undertaken without conflict with the condition. Subject to that, the recommendation is to grant, subject to the conditions set in the agenda and as amended. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Wheeler, you called this one in. Would you kindly explain to the committee why you called that in? Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you, Chair. I suppose really it is based on the comment that was just made by Sarita, in that it is a disproportionate overdevelopment within the Greenbelt. The property itself originally was a 2-up, 2-down small cottage, so it has effectively already doubled in size. And this, I believe, constitutes almost 35% in addition. So it is one hell of a development, and it is also, in terms of setting a precedent within the street scene, going to convert this property into a 3-storey dwelling. So it will be the first time, and also again, we're not just talking about Greenbelt, we're talking about it being sited within a triple SI. So it's actually, for those of you that don't know, Brick Hill is an unadopted road. It's an unadopted area. They were originally sort of Nissen huts, really, that grew up into a development. So it is a very rural environment. It would be completely out of keeping, in my opinion, with the street scene. And in addition to that, neighbours have raised objections about the size and the impact on their ability in the document that they sent in. It is predominantly about the size. So that was my reason for calling it in. I'm sure we'll discuss it a bit further.
Thank you. Mrs. Bishop, do you wish to comment on that? Or? No, thank you. Members. Councillor Tapper.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, just an observation. I wonder if possibly in future we could ensure that within our agenda papers we do get a copy of the existing plans for the building for comparison purposes, without us having to go to the planning site on the council's website to see those and try and compare them that way, side by side. I believe we have done that in the past. The other observation I'd like to make here is I am aware of Councillor Wheeler's objections on the comparison with what the property looked like when it was originally built. As we can see from item 732 here, we're not even sure when it was built, but it was certainly built sometime between 1915 and 1971. I think from my point of view, the pertinent issue is that the existing extensions were granted permission in 1973, as I understand it, from 7.3.2, June 1973. If that itself exceeds the expansion that would be permitted for a property of this type in the green belt, then why was it not objected to then? Why was it permitted? And therefore, because this is now well past the statute of limitations, why are we not comparing the extension in addition to what is there now and established and has been established for, what's that, nearly 40 years, rather than going back to when the property was built, 1915. It hasn't looked like when it was built for 50 odd years. And I don't think anybody has been objecting to how it looks now in any of that time. I'm not aware of them having done so. So I think it's only fair to the owner here that we compare the extension that is proposed now to what currently exists rather than what then existed when the building was built. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Bishop, before you come in, I think Councillor Wheeler possibly wants to come in first, and then maybe you can come in afterwards. Thank you.
Planning legislation, Councillor Tapper. The other thing as well that I'd just like to bring to other members' attention is DM4, where we say the replacement, extension or alteration of an existing residential dwelling in the countryside. The replacement, extension or alterations to residential countryside, blah, 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 will be supported where the proposal would not have a detrimental impact on the rural character through its siting or design. And I have to say, if you look at the image on our left-hand side as we're looking at it, that is one hell of a house in a rural environment. And then the second one is it's not disproportionate in size or scale, including its overall floor space, bulk and height. So in one of the earlier images, we saw the next door neighbour, which is very much smaller and would be dwarfed essentially by this building. If we are minded to approve it, I would be very grateful if a condition could be levied whereby this property is restricted, and I don't know if it's possible or not, to a single occupancy, that it cannot be converted into essentially two separate dwellings, which I feel from the layout and the extension, it is suggesting that it may do.
In response to Councillor Tapper's queries, planning as we know it today dates from July 1948, and that is where we measure all our planning dates from. The NPPF says we have to look at the original dwelling. That's the test we have to look at, so that is why we have gone back there. Whilst I acknowledge that the extension was built in 73, 75, the one thing I would say is how governments interpret Greenbelt policy has changed in my 25 years of doing planning. I have seen very restrictive interpretations. As time goes on, it appears to me that it is not as strict as it was when I started my planning career. But that is why we have to assess it in that context, because that's what the NPPF says. With regard to Councillor Wheeler's queries on a single dwelling, it would need planning permission to go to 2. And to be perfectly honest, given that it's within 400 metres of the SPA, there would be a principal objection to that in any event. I think that's everything. Is that everything?
So just to clarify, I hear what you say about the SPA, but is there some way we can flag that up, if you like, for want of a better expression? But then, of course, you do start running into problems of what constitutes a single family, the extended family, etc.
Yeah, I mean, in many respects, imposing a condition is superfluous because they need planning permission. However, you can impose an informative reminding them of the fact that it's within 400 metres of the SPA.
Councillor Wheeler?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to object to this planning application on the grounds that it doesn't comply with DM4 .1.2 and is overdevelopment and inappropriate development within the green belt. Thank you.
Fine. Can I just draw your attention, or the committee's attention, to the situation on permitted rights, where the officers are taking an imbalanced view on this, in that there is greater harm if the application was refused, and if this is correct, Mrs. Bishop, I'm looking at you, and the extensions under permitted rights would have a greater harm. Is that correct?
The report sets out what fallback positions you can have under permitted development. The rules allow for significant outbuildings. They allow for larger additions to the roof in terms of dormer windows. So basically, the fallback position is that there is a lot of development that they can do without permission. And what if members were to approve this, what would then happen is that the council would remove the rights for them to do anything without our permission.
Councillor Wheeler?
If I can just check then, so if you've already had 100% addition, you still have permitted development rights?
Yeah, basically, unless the rights are removed, then they are still intact. They have to be physically removed.
And it's just to double check then on that 1973 or 5 permission, there is nothing in there about permitted development rights?
I can't tell you what was in that 73 or 75 permission, but what I would say is that back then it was unusual to remove permitted development rights. I won't say that categorically they haven't, but I would say that it's unusual. But in any event, this application needed planning permission. So it has come to the committee for determination. Going forward, we have the recommendation is that we would remove all permitted development rights in any event. So it is covered in any event.
I'm going to ask Councillor Rice to come in next, if you don't mind.
I mean, it's on a completely different point. I'm just wondering, though, in 7.3.1, it says that development under the NPPF is allowed in the Greenbelt with exceptions, provided that, and for example, this includes extensions, provided that it does not result in a disproportionate addition over and above the size of the original building. But then later on, it does say in 7.3.4 that it would result in a disproportionate addition in over and above the size of the original building. And I was wondering if that is the exception to building in the Greenbelt, why the officer's recommendation is to approve. I'm just seeking clarification.
I think from the report, it talks about what is the harm to the Greenbelt, and one of the primary purposes of the Greenbelt is its openness. And I think it concludes by saying that the extension would not materially harm openness. And also, I think the special circumstances case is made in terms of the removal of the outbuildings. So yes, it does have an impact because it is disproportionate. That's what the report says. But it also balances that by saying that it has limited harm to the openness of the Greenbelt, and that we can actually exercise greater control to actually limit buildings that potentially could have a much greater impact on the openness of the greenbelt. So that's the argument.
Councillor Wheeler.
Sorry, we're at risk of determining this on the basis that we can remove permitted development rights when we don't know whether or not we've already had permitted development rights removed. As a point, I think we need that information, because I must confess it would probably sway my decision either way. But as it stands at the moment, the extension or alteration is disproportionate in size and scale, bulk and height when compared to the original dwelling. So I don't know whether we adjourn it and bring it back whilst we explore those original documentations, or whether we go ahead and determine this evening. But certainly my feeling is that if we determine this evening the proposed dwelling is contrary to DM4, small I, small double I, or whatever it is, and that we shouldn't be approving it.
I mean, Sarita's already made the point that the only point really of removing PD rights is so you've got that control. I'm pretty sure from checking those 70s applications that no such condition was actually imposed. But if members do feel that we want an absolute on that, I don't really figure it's going to make any difference to considerations tonight, because actually even if that condition was there, we still got this additional control, and we're ensuring it's in line with current GPDO, General Permitted Development Order requirements. So that's why we've listed all those specific requirements within the condition.
As an aside, permitted development rights is going to be the subject of a training session coming up in the not so distant future. I don't know, I'm torn on this one actually. And I hear what you said, I think the view on that, but so I'm still struggling to get this round. We don't know if any permitted development rights originally that the building was constructed and added to. We do know there are now, and we're planning to take away, but we're still saying that the application in itself would normally be deemed to be harmful to the green belt, but notwithstanding that, the permitted development rights as existing would allow a building and extension that would be even more harmful to the green belt than the one that's applied for. Is that correct? Councillor Wheeler, can you?
We don't know for certain whether or not those permitted development rights were removed in that 73 application. And this is a 3-storey dwelling.
Right. I think the consensus is that we may defer this then for further investigations. Members, are you happy for this item to be deferred and brought back to a further committee? Councillor Rise.
I completely accept and appreciate Councillor Wheeler's point, but what is the likelihood that the 1973 application removed permitted development rights? I understand the need for the desire for an absolute. In the expert opinion of the planning officers here tonight, will those permitted development rights have been removed?
Highly unlikely from the 1970s. Highly unlikely.
And the thing that I would add to that is that all that removing permitted development rights means is that you have to apply to the council for permission. So in this case, that's what's happened. They've applied. There has been nothing in terms of extensions to the house since that extension in the 70s. The rear extension has come to the committee. If it is approved, we have removed, all of the permitted development rights would be removed. So the basic premise is that all applications would come back to the council for determination.
Yes, Councillor Wheeler. I couldn't read the
Sorry,
hand
Councillor
signals.
Hawkins. I was going to say they have built the outbuildings since this development was approved. So a large number of those are new, and one of the ones in the back garden is very sizable, that has been built. So as it stands, we've got a 3-storey dwelling going into the middle of the common. And in terms of Councillor Tapper's comment about consistency, the previous applications that have come in this area have actually been refused as not being appropriate. So if we're being consistent, we should definitely refuse it.
Right, I'm going to stop this now. I'm sorry, Councillor Rise and Councillor Tapper. I think I'm going to put that we defer it for investigations into the earlier application, and that is all. Just for clarification on that one, because otherwise we'll go around in a circle. And that is the basis that it is going to be deferred on. Is there agreement on that from the committee, or is anybody against that? Councillor Tapper.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm against that.
Sorry, can you say it again?
I am against that.
Right. I'm proposing that we defer it for that basis. Councillor Wheeler is seconding that. Can we have a vote on those in favour of deferring it for that one item?
Votes in favour of the recommendation to defer from Councillor Hawkins. Councillors Barnett, Black, Gordon, Lewis, Rataram, Rise, White, Wheeler and Hawkins.
Against?
Councillors Betton, Perry, Tapper.
Abstain? There's an abstention, Mr. Scott.
Abstaining Councillor Graham Alloway.
That is carried then, that is deferred for that one item, and will come back to this committee at another date. Members, that's it, as far as I can see, unless somebody snuck something in my agenda that I'm not aware of. The next meeting is on the 20th of January. We will be getting a schedule of training dates, and I think the one we had, I think it was last night, was very interesting for those that could make it. It's slow to start, but it got quite tasty as it went on from county highways, and it was good the county highways were here. Members, anybody watching on YouTube, thank you for joining us. I think we're seeing each other again shortly, members and officers, but if we don't, have a good Christmas, and the words of the famous late comedian, Dave Allen, may your God go with you. Thank you and good night.